This was fun. That's about half the size of the original painting. It was. I cheated. I was invited as a young painter to exhibit at the Tate Gallery, and the exhibition was called "Figures in Their Setting." Well, everybody did your large figures doing this. Well, I wasn't going to do it. I wanted to do my landscapes. So I did the landscape, and to get through, I put 2 little figures there, especially the chap with his braces showing, to wave me to the people on the one there. And that was my excuse of getting in the exhibition. That was my figures in their setting. But I just loved drawing the Tower Bridge and St. Paul's behind it, and the shipbuilding, and also it's all about drawing. It's about making space through drawing. And that picture I gave to my art gallery in my hometown in memory of my father. But I enjoyed that one. But it's just a bit bigger than the one on the wall there. Next slide. Well, I saw a pretty nurse one day, and this was down in Greenwich. And I like the buildings, and I like the architecture, and also I just loved the red pillar box, and to make that pillar box sit there was difficult. And also to make it work, I like the way I used the same red on the nurse as well. On there. So these were things I did. These were sort of genre pictures, looking at paintings in the streets of London. This is round Greenwich. These were just little ideas of proprietary drawings for what I might do or may never do. But these were in my first exhibition in England. The next one? A lot of people have never seen these. I've never shown these before. Then that's the one. That's the Tate Gallery in London. At that time, I didn't have a picture in the Tate, but I could paint it from the outside. Then again, I love drawing, the dexterity of drawing. This was just on a wood panel. I just loved to draw the architecture. I was crazy about architecture. I should have been an architect at that time. But these are things, little drawings I did, which eventually I did paintings of. And the next one, that's a strange one. That's the one I did at St. Paul's. You can never see that picture again, because it's all built up. That was after the bombing. St. Paul's got a direct hit. The bomb went through the top. And an old Professor Heinrich was the only man that could repair St. Paul's. But now, you can't see that now, because it's got modern buildings all around it. I mean, that's the thing that Prince Charles was enraged about. But anyway, so that's a historical picture now, because it doesn't exist. It's all being built up until the buildings make St. Paul's, they've dwarfed it, in other words. Next one. Then I used to like to go off to France. And this is one of the painting I did sitting in the Louvre. And then again, you can see I just love the buildings. So I had a knack of doing the buildings. I like this one, but I also like width. I like the idea of 2 old ladies sitting there, and behind there's a Greek god like this, and they don't look up, And, I like humour as well. So these were pictures I did just sitting there in front of the Louvre, and painting the buildings and the people around them. So this is where I learned my craft. Next, now. This is where things start to change. I went back to my hometown, which was it had been a big shipbuilding area. This is a hotel on the front, very much like, it's the same like across the water at Dieppe and places like that. It's a town with rather nice Victorian Edwardian buildings, but then you've got people sitting out. But what I laughed about this one, I had to go and stand before the tide was coming in, so I could stand there and paint it. And while that one was, I think, successful, because I had to stop because the tide was coming in. It was right behind me. Where's got my name there? I was standing. But I did things like this, and just looking at social things and a wonderful crane in the background. So these are things where I learnt my craft. On these two, I also learned that instead of painting the sandy colour there, I'd use a piece of a board which looked like the colour of sand, and I used that to paint on. And using a board which has the colour of sand, you accept it as a colour to start with, then you move on from it. So these are the sort of sketches I did. The next one, then I was influenced by two people, and I'd like to tell you about them. I was influenced by two people. This one man was called Alfred Wallace, and he was a fisherman in St. Ives, and he didn't start to paint until he was 81. At the same time, he married a lady with 17 children, and she played the trumpet in the Salvation Army Band. And he was an incredible character. He died in 1942, so I never met him. But he used to do pictures of yesterday, of memories. And this is one of his pictures of the sea coming in St. Ives, and the ships in the harbour in St. Ives. And it's like a child drawing, but it has all... This man influenced so many people, and people collect his work. He was a great friend of Ben Nicholson and Barbara Hepworth, the sculptor. He was very friendly with Mondrian, the man that went to America. And I love these lovely tin plates. But what was rather nice, when the critics came along, he would draw 5 houses, miss a house, do 3 houses, and miss 2. And the critics would say, oh, of course, he uses the Fibonacci system, or uses the modeler system. The thing was, if he didn't like the Smiths or Brown, he wouldn't put their house in. that's what's called artistic license. The next slide. So you'll find I'm very influenced by this man. So I was influenced by this man, and the next slide is this man. Now we are changing. This man was called Kurt Schwitters, and he belonged to a group called the Dada artists. They were the artists that met in Geneva in the First World War, when some of the soldiers, instead of fighting, got a break, and they came back and they went to a neutral place in Switzerland. And they got together and said, nothing that they do could be anything worse than what had happened in the First World War. And so they did all sorts of new things. And this man used collage and found objects in his pictures. And I met him. He was in the Bauhaus in Germany, and he was a friend of Kandinsky and a man called Paul Klee. And they were great friends together. And he escaped the Nazis out of Norway, and he landed in my part of the world in 1938. And he lived on a farm in the Lake District. And I'd heard about this man, and all the people in my art school, oh, you don't, he's mad, you don't want to go and see him. Well, I like to meet mad people. So I got on my bicycle and I went there, and I met him. I did a bit of German, but he spoke perfect English. I didn't have to worry about that. And I always remember, I liked his pictures, but like Esperanto, I didn't know the language. I had to find out what the language was. And he said to me, Mr. Atkinson, he said, I'm a painter, but occasionally I like to nail things on my canvas. Well, for me, I thought, well, what the heck's he talking about? Now, if it hadn't been for this man, you wouldn't have an American artist called Rauschenberg. And this is the man that influenced Rauschenberg. And he did cut-out things and collages. And I learned more from this man, and I also use it in my teaching practice as well. Because not only I'm a painter, I'm also an educationalist. The next slide is the other man that influenced me, the next one, a man called Nicholas de Stael. And he influenced European painting and American painting in 1943, 44, 45. He had a great impact. What was interesting about this man, he was a Russian, and he was also in the French Foreign Legion. Now imagine being out in a desert, and you want to do perspective, and you've got no telegraph wires, and you've got no barbed wire, and you've got no buildings, how do you make space? You make it with colour. You make colour work, you make colour space. And that's what's important of the 20th century. We use colour to make space in a picture. Going in perspective in the picture, but space that comes out of the picture into the front and joins you. So when I look at one of his pictures, I'm halfway in his picture because it comes out to meet me. We're all used to pictures where they're behind the horizon line. They're way back in infinity. But if it's legitimate to make space going back that way, it's also legitimate to make it come out into your space. Or the duality between that space and this space is what picture making is all about. And why I liked him was because just as the war ended in France, he worked in an aircraft hangar, and suddenly all around him was these big containers of a used plastic, which we now call acrylic. Remember, we've gone from oil paints to acrylics. But why did we do it? Well, this man, during the war, the French put all sorts of barrage balloons up to stop the Germans bombing Paris. Well, the German fighter pilots came away, the balloons came down. So they used this gum and glue to patch up the barrage balloons to put them up again. So this chap found all this glue. And he said, what can I do with it? Well, it changed everything. I mean, even when you paint your house now, it comes from this. It's acrylic. What is acrylic as compared with oil paint? Oil paint is about using a resin or oil or turpentine as the vehicle to make the thing work. Acrylic is water. Water is the agent to make it move. And what you're really doing, you're moving gum, you're moving glue about. Then you take that glue and put a colour in it, and you have something different. So this is what this chap did. And also, he influenced a lot of sculptors in the way he put things down. And I learned a lot from this man. Unfortunately, I met him, but he died in about 1947. But he uses colour to make space. There's no perspective space there. It's all colour space. And in the retina of the eye, you've got to decide where it is. And really, a lot of 20th century art of now, this is what it's about, moving space. Next, what I liked about Wallace is he told me I always painted a picture on an easel. The canvas is on the easel, and you paint on the easel. Unfortunately, that's just one fixed position, which means you can only enter the picture from a standing position looking at the canvas. But what I learned from Wallace, and I use it now, if I put my canvas on the floor, I can enter it not just from one position, I can enter it from four sides. I can walk around the canvas and enter it from four sides, and I get more out of it. This is what this chap did. He shows you a view which is both perspective and it's also flat and from the side. And he did all these fishing boats and things like that, and did symbols. But his pictures has a reality which children love. You might call it child art, but it has a reality which is tremendous. Next, and you see the... So now we're moving bit by bit from objective to subjective, meaning if you're the painter, you've got to put something you feel into the picture. So about that time, my pictures started to change. This is one of mine, which is in Leeds City Art Gallery in Yorkshire. This is the one I did, which is it has all things. It's looking down, looking across, and looking up. It's not just a straightforward vision. It's a vision of looking down, looking across. Also, I simplified the colour so I could get the dynamic.